Hello, welcome into WLOI Loyola Radio, streaming online at WLOI.org and Campus TV channel 111.1. This is After the Whistle, Loyola Sports Talk radio show, airing every Monday from 3 to 4 p.m. and every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Welcome into another Monday show. I am your host today, Jeffrey Bozzi, alongside my co-host Jimmy Cody. Jimmy, obviously our teams are playing this weekend, but how are you otherwise?
I'm okay, I guess. I mean, I've been better in the past, but you know what? I'm happy to be here talking sports with you for another week, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. That's my priority is on this right now, so we'll enjoy this show.
Yeah, so the NLCS and ALCS in the MLB playoffs wrapped up yesterday with the Houston Astros and the Philadelphia Phillies advancing to the World Series. Do you want to start with the Phillies and
Yeah,
Padres? Or do you
let's
want
start
to
with the good news. Let's start with your Phillies.
Okay, so we'll start on the NLCS side. The Phillies defeated the Padres 4-3 in Game 5 of that series to advance to the World Series, and it didn't come without some drama. Bryce Harper hit a go-ahead two-run home run in the eighth, which propelled the Phillies to the 4-3 victory. And I'm shocked overall. I'm just absolutely stunned as a Phillies fan, just the way that this playoff run is shaped up to be. And it's been a lot of different guys, but I think the one guy that's kind of been in the middle is Bryce Harper.
Yeah, he's been clutch. I mean, he's the story of these playoffs, it feels like.
Yeah. And it might sound cliche to think that the key to the Phillies' success offensively has to go through Harper because he's the best player. But I think if he's going right, I think if he's hitting home runs and producing at the plate, I think the other guys can really feed off of him. And then you look at the pitching this series was pretty good for the most part. I know that they slipped up a little bit in Game 2, but I would say otherwise they held San Diego to fewer than 6 runs in each game. They had 6 runs in Game 4, San Diego, but every other game they didn't score in Game 1. I believe on Friday night in Game 3 they had 2, and then yesterday they only had 3. So I guess credit to the Phillies pitching for that. But I thought coming in, this is going to be a really long series. I thought both of these teams were very evenly matched, top to bottom. I was just shocked that it was 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, especially with the Padres upsetting the Dodgers, I think a lot of people gave the Padres the upper hand. But you know what? You got to give credit to the Phillies because as soon as they went out to San Diego, they set the tempo. They took those games out there and they did what they had to do. Obviously, they only took one out there, but taking the first one was an absolute statement win because the Phillies offense, um, it was great. I mean, their offense, I think, is really what carried them to this win um, in this series. Now, I would be remiss if I did not bring this up, and it is essentially the story of that game, and it falls on Bob Melvin, the manager of the Padres. And the simple question is, why bunt there? You have the 9-hitter Austin Nola, brother of your pitcher Aaron Nola, of course, on deck, and we had first and second. They decided to move the runners over to the bunt to get second and third. And I know a lot of people don't like that decision, but I was thinking about it this way. And I feel like this is the only way that you can really describe it to make sense. It's like if you gave a football coach the chance to have a 4th and 1 at the goal line, knowing that they need a touchdown and they're gonna either get it or they're not gonna win, right? And by moving the runners to second and third, you're basically trying to take the lead with a single. And that's what their goal was. And I get that. I see the point in that decision, and I don't honestly hate that decision for the right hitter. For Juan Soto, for Manny Machado, listen, do it. For Austin Nola, I don't think that that's the right decision. Because it was almost like you get the ball to the goal line in that situation, but you also run 4 minutes off the clock and there's one play left.
Also,
because you took away a whole out.
Also, it's not like they were tied. They were down one, so they had to get the run. And I get that they tried to get the guy in scoring position, which he already was in scoring position. He was at second, but obviously if you get him to third, Nola hits a single, it's guaranteed that you're getting to get that tying run. But
you could even win if it's a good enough single, right?
You could get the guy from, was there another guy on base?
Yeah, we got in second.
So they had second and third, 2 outs after moving them over with the bunt. Yeah, I agree. I think for Juan Soto or Manny Machado, or I guess for any other hitter that's hot in the game, but I would say Soto and Machado are the 2 exceptions. I would probably move them over because more than likely they could get a hit. I mean,
And
they're
here's
really
the
good
thing.
hitters.
Kim was the guy on second, and he's pretty fast.
Yeah, he's a speedy
So
guy.
that's why I understand it more. I don't, like I said, I don't hate it. It's just that it's almost like you're taking time off the clock essentially in another sport, because that's essentially what outs are in baseball, the time, right? And I don't know, if you asked a lot of NFL coaches, all right, if you're gonna take one play, or if you ask an NBA, if you're gonna take it down to one play at the end, would you do that?
Yeah,
I don't know. I like, it's a 50-50 thing. Well, in other sports maybe, but in baseball, it's like more like a 300 thing at best.
But yeah, outs are
So-
precious and
Yeah, outs
baseball.
are precious in baseball, especially in playoff baseball. I guess too, did they maybe think that the Phillies, since their fielding, let's be honest, is a little bit of a concern at times this season. Do you think maybe Melvin was like, let's just see if they screw this up, and either way, we'll have guys on second and third?
Maybe. I think it was more so they just wanted the guy over the third.
Yeah, I just don't know for Nola.
It's not like people are going to be talking about it forever, this
No,
decision,
you
but
know,
it's one of those head
Yeah,
scratchers.
it was a head scratching decision, but at the end of the day, it's not like that's what this series was won and lost on. The other concern that I have though is we didn't see Josh Hader in the game, and I didn't understand that.
Yeah, they go out and get him at the deadline and they didn't even use him once.
That's
In that
that
game.
confuses me so much. You go and get these guys and then you don't use them. I don't understand that. I think that's poor bullpen management, which I think we'll talk about later with the other series as well.
Yeah, they brought in the Suarez guy. I forget his first name, Robert Suarez for the Padres. It's funny because the Phillies have an R Suarez. His name's Ranger Suarez. And he actually was the one who ended up closing out the game. But the guy on the Padres, Robert Suarez, he came in and pitched a good seventh. It was a clean sheet there, and then obviously had trouble in the eighth. So maybe you think they just wanted to ride him out and then maybe get to Hader in the ninth?
I mean, I guess so. I guess that's what they were going for, but you didn't even use your best reliever. I mean, listen, the way that I look at it in a game like that, you got to be willing to have a guy who can do 6 outs. Now, Hader's whole "I don't pitch multiple innings" thing was kind of a problem, I think, for the Padres in that situation. And I think, and this is a move that I've seen other teams make, where they bring in their best closer or their best reliever in the 8th inning, so that way their best relievers can go up against the best hitters. That would be the best case scenario. You want the best hitters to be going up against your best reliever because you want best on best, as does anyone. And I felt like in the case of this, Bob Melvin didn't do that. And honestly, I think it's ultimately what cost him the game, because as you saw, Bryce Harper hit one out to left field and won the game for the Phillies in the bottom of the 8th.
Yeah, and now for the Phillies, they're going to go up against the AL representative, the Houston Astros, who
Yep.
sadly took out your New York Yankees last night.
Yeah. Listen, it's a very simple for me. We're just not as good as them. We're just not as good as them. They're better than us. They're a more complete team. They have better starting pitching. Their lineup can hit for power and average. They're just a well-constructed team, and they're simply better than us. The Yankees, time and time again, it feels like in the big moments, it's either when their hitting is there, the pitching is not, and when the pitching is there, the hitting isn't. It's just constant, just not being having the team in the same groove. And that's very frustrating as a fan. Obviously it stings to lose to the Astros again, because this is now the 3rd time that we've lost to them in the ALCS. And it's getting very, very, very tiring of that. But I mean, honestly, I didn't think that the offense was horrible this game. Like, we still got up 5 runs. I thought Rizzo especially was really good. I thought Bader especially was very good. Torres finally had a decent game. The problem is that I think there's just so many guys on this team who are just easy outs in this lineup, and that's why they lose. Aaron Judge, I love the guy, and I really hope that he's back on the team next year. And I really do think at the end of the day, he is going to be on the team next year. And I want to believe that, but he did not have a good playoffs. And we'd be lying if we said that he had a good playoffs, because he didn't. He had a great regular season, but he didn't perform in the playoffs. Other guys like Josh Donaldson, they didn't perform in the playoffs. We had Jose Trevino. He was an all-star. He didn't perform in the playoffs. He didn't really perform the second half of the season. Another problem I think we had, the fact that Nestor Cortez couldn't get past the third inning. If your starter can't get past the third inning, it's gonna make it really tough on your bullpen. And we had to unfortunately put our relievers in situations where they weren't comfortable. We continually stretch out relievers, especially Aaron Boone, when he does this. He did it yesterday with Juan Peralta. It's just constantly doing that. It ended up working in his favor. But, we just put our bullpen in a really tough spot, and it was a lot to ask because we had such a tough start, especially with Nestor leaving with the groin injury.
Yeah, and I thought last night actually was
And
going to
also,
be the
it was
night.
a little disappointing too because he pitched so well the last game.
Right. And I thought last night you guys get out to that 3-0 lead, and then obviously the Pena home run, and then the Gurriel RBI single. And then actually you retook the lead later in the game, and then yeah. I thought you guys actually were going to win last night, and it's frustrating.
I'm choking.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm choking, but I'm okay now.
Okay, that's
Ooh.
good. And I actually thought you guys played them really well down in Houston, even though it didn't result in W's. I thought games 1 and 2 were pretty competitive. I thought game 2 was really the killer. I thought if you were going to steal that game and bring it back to New York 1-1, I think it could have been a lot different series.
I completely agree with you, Jeff.
And everyone brings up that Judge New Year home run. I think it was in the top of the 8th in that game too. I mean, if that goes over the wall, obviously it didn't go over the wall, but if that goes over the wall, I mean, we could still be playing this series.
I really felt like the only game we weren't competitive was game 3 in New York. And we put up no runs, obviously, and only got like 3 hits.
Mhm.
But what I will say is that yes, we were competitive, and it may have felt like it was close to you on the outside, but to me, it never felt at any point in the series like we were the better team.
Yeah, they're just so good top to bottom.
And then going forward, I mean, how do you look at this team? Because obviously the Phillies are going to be going up against them. This isn't, by the way, the Astros have not even lost a game this playoffs.
No, and it's actually funny you bring that up. The last time they lost a game was actually when we played them the last series of the regular season, when we beat them to get into the wild card.
Wow, really? I didn't even know that.
October 3rd.
That is crazy. So obviously the game's not till Friday. The Phillies Astros. I would expect that Nola would start, or is Wheeler going to start the first game? Or I would expect Wheeler.
I would expect Wheeler to go game 1 and Nola to go game 2, and then go from there.
Yeah. And then for them too, it's going to be Verlander on the mound more than likely game 1.
Yes. And I'm not sure who they have for game 2.
There's a lot of guys they can go.
Because they have a lot of really good secondary pitchers. They have that guy Framber, Valdez.
Yeah, Framber. I call him Farmer.
I thought it was Framer.
No, it is Framber. It is Framber. I don't know why
Framber. I don't know.
Yeah, Framber Valdez. He had a good game against us, obviously.
They have a lot of options.
They have a lot of options. They have McCullers, obviously he pitched last night, so you might see him later in series if you guys can win some games. But starting off in Houston again, I mean, I think you gotta set the tempo and try and win one of these first 2 games. I think if you can at least come back with 1 to Philly, that's good. I'm sure CBP will be rocking for the games. So you just got to get back to Philly, I think, with a win.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal, getting at least 1 of the 2 down there. Down 2-0 going to Philly would be a little disheartening, but I still wouldn't rule it out if they could win game 3 down 2-0. But yeah, getting 1 of the first 2 is huge.
And you know what's unfortunate for the Phillies, and I feel like their style of play favors the Astros a little bit. They're a very offensive team. They're an offensive-minded team. Like, you guys rely a lot on the clutch hits, the big hits. And let's be honest, the Astros have very good pitching. They have a decent bullpen, and they got some really nice starters. So I think the only way the Phillies are really going to be able to put themselves in a position is they're going to have to be really, really good on offense. And they have been. They're going to need guys like Harper to continue this absolute destruction that we've on right now. They're going to need guys like Schwarber to step up and keep getting on base and hitting the long ball and whatnot. They're going to need guys like Hoskins to hit the homers. I mean, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then if your bullpen can hold up too, because we've seen, I mean, you guys did, you had some close encounters, I thought, right?
Oh, definitely. Even going back to the Atlanta series.
Game 4 too, that you also had your games 4, you gave up a lead with Brad Hand. Game 2, obviously you guys gave up a lead as well. So I mean, I think that's kind of the key for you guys. So I think getting a lead, but also holding it.
Yeah, I think playing from behind is a recipe for disaster against the Astros because I think they can use their pitching depth to their advantage. Because listen, they can have their starter go 4 or 5 innings, or they can have them go 8 innings. If they get to their bullpen, they're going to be fine, probably out of their way because they have guys like Presley and Neris. There's probably other guys I can't even name. Garcia, the guy that does that double windup kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, they have a host of guys that can come in different situations. I think that's the clear cut advantage they have. They're just top to bottom better than the Phillies. That being said, I do think we have a shot just in the sense that I think the offense has a lot of upside in the sense that they can put up 10 runs like they did in game 4, and they can put up some big numbers in big innings. And I think the key though is getting the lead because falling behind against Houston's trouble. And especially the thing that concerns me is Altuve and Alvarez have not really been that good for
no,
Houston.
they
And
haven't.
they're the 2 best hitters on the team. If they get clicking,
It's the other guys.
it's not good. I would say Pena is the X factor again, because he's been kind of the unsung hero.
Pena, Tucker, McCormick,
Even Miriam Bregman.
Bregman. I mean, these guys, Jordan Alvarez, or I'm sorry, we mentioned Alvarez already. We got Gurriel on that.
Right,
Yeah, I mean,
Gurriel.
these are all guys who are, listen, they are not bad hitters. They can hit. I will say this though, both those ballparks, I think this is gonna be a high scoring series because I think both those ballparks are ones that people can hit home runs in. I mean, left field's not that far in where the Astros play, so that favors a guy like, Schwarber. Maybe you can take a couple down there.
The only real difference is that Houston's left field wall is way higher than Philly.
That wall though is kind of a joke. Like I know people like to talk about Yankee Stadium, but that wall really is a joke. Okay.
Yeah, and then the difference with right field is the wall at Citizens Bank Park is a little higher than Houston's. It's probably triple the size, but
point is
dimensions wise, they're very similar.
Yeah, point is both ballparks favor hitters a little bit more.
Yeah, and we'll have to see. The other factor is if Minute Maid Park's roof is open or closed. I don't know if they're gonna tinker with that, depending on the weather.
Well,
I don't really
if you
know.
guys want it closed, I'm sure it'll be open.
Yeah, 100%.
The Patriots of MLB, that's basically what the Astros have become now.
It's not a bad comparison.
Find a way to just manipulate everything to their advantage.
Yeah,
But I will say this. I do think the Phillies have a better chance than people are going to give them credit for. I definitely think that right now they are potentially on a miracle run. I mean, I really like what I see from this team. I feel like there's so many times where you just expect them to just kind of roll over and they just continuously fight back. I mean, yesterday, I thought that game was lost at some points, especially when they gave up that lead so late.
yeah, they had trouble with pitching. I mean, you could maybe blame that on the rain. I don't know, bad command. But yeah, they definitely had some points where you're thinking, oh, they actually can win this game. And then all of a sudden they give up 2 runs and they could lose, and vice versa. There's so many games where the Phillies are like, oh my God, we're going to lose. And then all of a sudden we win. And then, I don't know. It's a lot of roller coaster rides.
Yeah, I was gonna say every Phillies game seems like an adventure from what I've seen.
It definitely is. It's interesting too, from a matchup perspective. The Astros had the best record in baseball all year. They were the 1 seed in the AL, #1 overall seed in the playoffs. And then you have the Phillies, who were the last team to get in. I think the Astros won 106 games and the Phillies won 87. So they won 19 more games. I mean, that's a big disparity.
Yeah,
It's
that
a
doesn't matter
fascinating
now.
matchup.
It doesn't matter.
No, all that's out the window. Yeah. It's interesting too, because usually when you're coming into the World Series, these teams usually don't play each other. They might play each other once during the year, but the Phillies played them like 3 weeks ago. So I guess maybe they kind of know
There's some
what they're-
familiarity there.
like barely, but at least they know what they're getting themselves into. It's going to be a tall task.
Sure. And good luck to you and the rest of the Philadelphia Phillies fans.
Yeah,
on
thank
this
you.
campus.
We're definitely going to need it.
From Yankees Nation, we would like to see you guys upset the Astros. I'm sure a lot of people would because we absolutely hate those guys.
Yeah, I think there's pressure on both sides. I guess for the Phillies, they didn't really expect to be here. I mean, I'm sure the team expected to go on a run, but I think a lot of the fans outside did not expect them to go this far. So I think now they've gotten this far, I think winning the whole thing would obviously be huge because
Yeah.
you don't know when you're going to get back. I mean, that's for any sport, but you don't know when you're going to get back to the championship round. And then for the Astros, they're 0-2 in the last few years against NL East teams in the World Series. So they obviously don't want that trend to continue. I'm mentioning that they lost to the Nationals and the Braves in the last, I think, 4 years.
Mhm.
So they obviously want to win a title of their own because they haven't won a title since 20, whatever that was with the cheating scandal, 17, 18, whatever year it was. So I think they're putting that scandal behind them, but I think a title for them would really cement it that they're onto the new phase of the Astros.
Yeah, definitely a different squad than the 2017 squad.
It's crazy too, because they arguably could be better,
Yeah, that's,
even when losing Correa and Springer and other people.
yep, I agree. All right, we ready to move on to some football?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we're gonna start with the Falcons and Bengals. There was a lot of great games yesterday, but this one, I mean, poof, talk about some offense and talk about some Bengals offense. I mean, poof, they had a day. Joe Burrow throws for 481 and 3 TDs as the Bengals absolutely destroy the Falcons. Listen, the Bengals did not start off good, but if they play like this every week, they're gonna be a tough out. And I think I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I think you could pencil them in there with just about anyone if they're playing offense like this.
Yeah, they're starting to round into form a little bit. They're starting to look like the Bengals from January and February of last season. And yeah, I think they're the type of team, if they can get it going with Burrow and Chase and others, Tyler Boyd, Joe
Higgins.
Mixon, yeah, T. Higgins, they can pretty much put up points with anyone. I mean, you can put them up there if they're on, because the key word is if they're on. And they can put them up there with Buffalo and Kansas City and whatnot. They can really score with the best of them. Yeah, for the Falcons, I don't know. I just feel like they're outmatched.
Yeah, they were outmatched.
I mean, they've been good though. I mean, I know they're 3-4, but they're right in the thick of it in the South because we'll get into this
Yeah, they're
NFC
in
South
they're in a
stuff
tie,
later.
tie for first.
Yeah, there's some crazy developments going on in that division.
All right, so next game we have the Lions taking on the Cowboys. The Lions only able to put up 6 points, and unfortunately, Amon-Ra St. Brown also gets hurt. But 5 turnovers in the second half for the Lions. That is just brutal, including 2 picks by Jared Goff. I didn't think that the Cowboys offense looked like super good at all. I really was never that impressed with what they did. They weren't like explosive or anything, and they kind of struggled at first because it was 6-3 at halftime. The Lions were up.
Yeah, and I get it. You're getting Dak back. He might go through some growing pains a little bit in that game, but you know what? Zeke found a way to get in twice, and they just did just enough. And the defense, once again, the defense is just the strength of this team. And it's crazy too, because last year their offense was really, really good. And I know they've had QB injuries this year, but I think the defense is the one thing they could always hang their hat on. But if Prescott can round into form and he can play like the top 10 QB that I think most people think he is, I think they could be very dangerous later in the season.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next game in Nashville, the Colts went over to Nashville to take on the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans defended home field. I mean, we thought that there was a chance that they might be on possible upset alert, but now Tennessee puts themselves in essentially what is the driver's seat of that division. They're now up a game against the Colts in the standings, but they're also up 2 games in the head-to-head because they've beaten them twice already this season, and that's their closest challenger.
Yeah, and actually the Colts made news today that Matt Ryan is no longer going to be the starting quarterback. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I did not see that.
So I don't know if he's injured or they just straight up benched him, but Sam Ellinger is now the QB1.
Well, Sam Ellinger a few weeks ago got promoted to starting because Nick Foles is also on the roster, but he was put as QB3 recently. So there were some rumors this could happen. Ellinger had a nice preseason, so got to give the kid a chance. Obviously, at Texas, he was very up and down, but he has a lot of grit and he plays really hard. So I'm going to be interested to see how he does. I think for the Colts, listen, I think they're in the same boat as a lot of other teams. The quarterback is really affecting their offense. And listen, I think if you're Frank Reich, you have to change something, right? Like clearly something is not working here. So if you're going to just keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, it's not going to go great. And you know what's a shame too? Their offense or their defense only gave up 19 points. 19 points.
Yeah, you would think you'd be in the ball game there, but I guess not.
But you know what else is a problem for them? They're not running the ball that well. they're not running the ball like they used to.
Taylor's not the same.
They're so reliant on their quarterback. I mean, they're throwing the ball 44 times with Matt Ryan. He's had 2 picks. I mean, what do you really expect? You can't expect that much from the guy. I mean,
Well-
he just isn't the same guy as that he was.
On the other side, you have Tennessee making Tannehill only throw the ball 20 times, and they gave Henry 30 carries.
Yeah, but you know what?
I know he's a workhorse, but I think that just shows you the disparity there. Even you give, I don't know, Jonathan Taylor 20 carries, you think you have more success, right?
Well, here's the thing about Tennessee, and this is one of the things that I've always kind of admired about their offense. They just stick to what they can do well, and they just run the ball. That's if they get killed and they're completely outclassed by another team like they were against the Bills, at least they're committed to running the ball. I feel like people know that that's their identity, and they're like, basically, this is the reverse of catch us if you can. It's basically like stop the run against us if you can. You know what I mean? There's a lot of teams who are not that great at stopping the run, and I feel like running the football has become kind of like a second option. But truthfully, it can open up your offense a lot, especially when you have a good quarterback like, you know, a Patrick Mahomes or a Justin Herbert or a Josh Allen. You know, when these guys are really at their best, the whole offense is clicking. You're not just so one-dimensional. Another thing we're going to talk about later is we're going to talk about the Bucs and their struggles. One thing they have not done at all this season well is run the football, and that was something they used to do very well.
Yeah, I don't know where the Colts go from here. Obviously, they're going to try to see what they have in Ellinger, and then Tennessee. I mean, if they keep winning games, I think the AFC South is probably going to be theirs.
Well, their next couple games are, you know, pretty big for them. They got the Texans this week on the road, and they play the Chiefs the week after on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, those are going to be big ones. They have shown they can win on the road, so we'll see.
Yeah. All right. So moving on after that, if I can get this to work here, we have the Commanders and the Packers. So that game, I mean, what else can you say?
A shocker.
Yeah, it is a complete shock.
There's another shocker that we'll get into right
Taylor
after too.
Heineke makes the start this week for Carson Wentz, who injured his finger. I think a lot of people did not expect the Packers to lose this game. And for the Packers right now, I mean, this thing looks like a sinking ship, apparently.
Yeah,
that's the only way that I could describe it. And they have a huge game next week.
Yeah, and if I could find a panic button somewhere around here, I would be hammering it.
Just
There we
hit
go. Yep, you
Just
just
hit
hit it. I would be pressing that thing so many times until it breaks. Anyway, they're in shambles, the Packers.
Yeah.
I know they're 3-4, so you're like, all right, whatever. Week 7, still got time. RELAX, whatever. They just don't look good at all.
Maybe here's the fact that they ran the ball 12 times with their 2 running backs.
Wouldn't you think that would be what they want to do? That's the strength of the
That's
team.
literally their strength on offense. I mean, the receivers are just not good enough. They just don't have good enough receivers at all.
Yeah, and you actually bring up a good point about next week. They have to go to Buffalo on Sunday Night
Did
Football.
you see what Roger said after the game? They asked him, they're like, well, what do you think about this? He goes, oh, it might be the best thing for us. You know, everybody's going to count us out against Buffalo.
Which is true.
That is 100% true. I don't think anybody cares about the Packers at this point. They just look at them and they're like, this is a terrible team.
Yeah, but going into Buffalo, that's a tall order. But yeah, if you go back to just yesterday, they got to run the ball more. And listen, it's not like they were getting killed. They were up 14-10, I think, for a little while in the third quarter, especially. And then Washington took the lead and they were still down by 9. And then they scored a touchdown late. But yeah, I don't know if there's one issue that's dooming this team. I don't really know if there's a glaring issue that they need to fix, because it just seems like they do some things well and then other things they just don't do well. I think it's just execution. I just think they can't execute. I mean, you go back to the London game, they could not execute in London.
Their defense isn't as good this year either.
Yeah,
It's
and they
the
gave up
whole
27 to the Jets
And now they're giving up 23 to the Commanders.
with the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just got to fix something.
Yeah.
They need a win. If they just win a game soon, hopefully they can get back in good spirits. But yeah, I don't know. But
I mean, and for them, it doesn't get really that much easier because we mentioned some of the teams that they're going to play already. We know the Bills next Sunday on Sunday Night Football. Then they are at Detroit. They have to win that game.
divisional game.
Yeah, but then they're welcoming the Cowboys to Lambeau. Then they play the Titans on a Thursday night, so a short week there. And then 10 days later, they play the Eagles on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, they got to win.
Those are some tough games.
They got to win probably 3 of the 5. I think at bare minimum, if they want to get back in the race. Yeah, tough task for them, but I want to move on to another shocking score from yesterday that happened in Carolina. The Panthers beat Tampa Bay, and not just beat them, they beat them really, really bad, 21-3. What's going on with Tampa Bay? Because I know their offense has been around 20 points every game, and
only
I guess
way-
it's consistent, but 20 points is not really what this offense signed up for. And yesterday they had 3.
The only way that I can describe this game for Tampa Bay is surprising. I just did not expect this. So they run the ball yesterday 16 times for 46 yards. They do not have a single run longer than 11 yards.
It's not going to
I
cut
think
it.
it's obvious that the losses on the O-line sustained during free agency, as well as the injury to Jensen, have just completely destroyed. this team.
And the retirement from Marpet.
Yeah,
He retired, so that's a big loss.
Yeah.
Jensen obviously being out. I agree with you.
it's the O-line is just not as good. The only guy that they have right now is Works,
And he's good.
and he's good,
But he can only
he's
do
one-
so much.
He's one guy.
You need 4 other guys who
Yeah,
can
exactly.
do the job.
The O-line has to be a unit who's in unison.
Especially when you have Tom Brady back there, and you know how great he is of a passer. I mean, he's an otherworld talent, but
Also-
he can't move around that really.
We're talking about struggles from the team. How about the receivers? I mean, Mike Evans dropping a clear end zone touchdown.
Yeah, fumbling around the air. Not a good look.
Not good.
I guess the silver lining for them is that they're still somehow, some way tied for first place, just
Yeah.
because their division's very bad. I mean, Carolina is now in it. They're only a game back,
They're a game back.
and they have the tiebreaker.
Yeah,
They'll play later in the year in Tampa Bay. I'm not sure when that is, but you look at the landscape of the South, the
Yeah.
NFC South. Atlanta's right there, 3-4, and they played Tampa toe to toe.
and they almost should have beaten.
And I know the Saints haven't really looked that great this year, but
They're
they're
gonna get
still in it.
Jameis back and hope maybe they can find a way to, as well as the receiver, because they do have a lot of receiver injuries with Landry and Thomas.
Yeah, and they'll be well rested for next week because they played Thursday. They play Vegas next Sunday, so that's a winnable game, I think. But yeah, that division's actually going to be kind of fun. It's like the new NFC East.
Yeah, essentially. All right, moving on down to Jacksonville, the Giants. So I guess cement themselves as elite according to their fans with a 23-17 victory over the Jaguars. 1 yard short for those Jaguars. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. The one thing I did take from this game, the fans of the Giants are all idiots who are just pumping up the team and they think that this is a great win. It's not at all. It was a miserable game for them. They really didn't look that good. In my opinion, from what I saw, I thought they let up way too many points to a Jacksonville offense that really is not that great. But I know that it's 17, but I mean, it was not a pretty 17. It could have very easily been a lot more had there been a few more ticks on the clock.
And I'll actually reverse it. I was a little concerned with their offense. They didn't really do anything until the fourth quarter because they settled for 2 field goals in the second. They had a nice touchdown drive early in the game.
Yeah, Jones had a nice.
Slayton had a nice touchdown there, but they didn't really do much until they really had to. Jones ran one in, and then Gano had a field goal, and then they were lucky to hold on. I think if Jacksonville gets in the end zone, they probably, more than likely, probably win the game if they make that extra point. But
Here's the thing.
It's a good win for the Giants,
They
but-
gave up a lot of yards on offense, the Giants, or a lot of yards with their defense. I mean, Trevor Lawrence had 310 in the air. ETN has 114 on the ground. And thankfully, I mean, they kind of get lucky with that fumble by ETN, right?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was
Definitely a
that was
gift.
the gift of the game, essentially. I mean, the Giants get handed another game through turnovers. What else is new? For them, it does not get any easier, by the way, because they have to go to Seattle. And here's one thing I'm gonna say about that game in Seattle. The Seattle offense is talented. The Seattle
Yeah, I think they're
defense-
no joke.
the Seattle defense, it's not that bad either. I mean, for the Giants, they are so reliant on the run. So reliant on the run. I mean, the only reason they won this game is because Daniel Jones essentially took over as a runner as well.
Yeah, I mean, they have all they need already in Saquon on the ground, but if you get your QB running for 107, I mean, what more can you want? But yeah, that's gonna be a fun game to
What's going
watch.
to happen when a team stops the run, though? When the team really forces them to pass or takes away the Jones runs? Like, that's when they're in trouble.
Yeah, I think the key for them so far this year is I feel like Daniel Jones hasn't had as many of those awful turnovers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that's kind of limiting, or not limiting, but it's kind of helping them in the sense that, I don't know, they're not having these stupid plays where they're just giving the ball right back.
I will say that they are winning the turnover battle, and that is helping them because they're not making their own stupid mistakes on.
I mean, if they keep winning, I think Dayball is going to win Coach of the
Well,
Year.
yeah, of course, or Pete Carroll at this point. Those have to be the two front runners, in my opinion. But the Giants' offense is just so vanilla, you know. I mean, they really don't do anything flashy. They really just kind of hand the ball off. You know, they're going to give it to Barkley. That's their identity.
I guess if it's working, keep doing it.
Against those good defenses, though, they're going to struggle. I mean, they struggled a little bit against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And that's going to be something they're going to have to face going forward. It's not like they're never going to play the Cowboys again. They're going to have to play the Eagles twice. I mean, for the Giants, my question is, what happens when they stop their run? When their run is stopped? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And I say on the flip side, coming up, they have some tough running backs they're going to go against. I mean, Seattle's got a bunch of guys that can run.
Kenneth Walker.
Damon Pierce when they play Houston, Swift and Williams when they play Detroit, Zeke and Pollard when they play Dallas. So their run defense is going to have to be good too. But it's all happy in Giant land right now. I mean, 6-1, they're the only other team besides the Eagles that has 6 wins in the entire NFL.
Yeah. All right, so another 1 o'clock game. We had the Browns and Ravens here in Baltimore. So the story of this game, I guess, is the Ravens tried to give it away, but somehow, some way, the Browns are going to blame them, and they find a way to miss the kick. Just a typical Browns performance. I mean, if you're a Ravens fan, you had to be sweating that yesterday.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there. They didn't blow the lead. They finally did not blow the lead, and they held on.
Tried to.
It's a big win, though. I mean, they had to win this game for their confidence sake to actually prove that they can actually hold on to a lead. And divisional win's huge. They already beat Cincinnati. That was huge. And now they have another win against Cleveland. So they're 2-0 in the division. That's big.
Yeah, and here's the thing, though. They were up 23-13, and then they fumble with 3:12 to play, and they essentially give the game right back to the Browns, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like they do that over and over and over again. Just, I don't know. This is something they're going to have to find a way to work through, and for their sake, it's good they got the win.
Yeah,
but they go down to Tampa Bay this Thursday, and listen, that's a team who's going to be looking to get right.
Yeah, and then they go to New Orleans the following Monday night, so they got a little NFC South road trip here.
They actually play their next 3 games against the NFC South.
Oh wow, they must have a home game in there.
No. They have a Ravens play the Bucks on Thursday, and then they play next Monday or 2 Mondays against the Saints. That's November 7th, and then they have a bye, and then they play the 20th against the Panthers at home.
I think they can beat Tampa. That game might be a pick 'em, honestly. That's a pretty evenly matched game, in my opinion. And both teams it's hard to trust either team just because the Ravens with the defense, the Bucks with the offense. That's going to be an interesting game. But I think we're going to take a quick break here, but we're going to come back and we're going to break down the rest of the slate. And then we'll briefly touch on the Monday night game tonight up in Foxborough. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to WLOI Loyola Radio, streaming online at WLOI.org and Campus TV channel 111.1. This is After the Whistle with Jimmy Cody and Jeffrey Bazzi. We were touching on some of the 1 o'clock games from the slate yesterday. Now we're going to get into the 4 o'clock window and Sunday night, Monday night football. So, Jimmy, we're going to start with a tough one yesterday in Denver.
Yeah, so the Jets beat the Broncos 16-9. Brett Ribbon made the start for the Broncos. Unfortunately, no Russell Wilson, which when we had the show on Friday, we were under the impression that Russell Wilson was going to be playing.
Yes, we did. We thought that he was going to play, and obviously that was not the case.
Yes.
Sadly for the Broncos.
Yes, unfortunately, also for Brett Ribbon's sake, he did not know he was starting until Saturday morning. So I have a lot of questions about that because, Russ practiced. So if he could practice, why couldn't he play? But again, this was all Hackett's call, so that falls on him.
Now, let's go a little bit more into Hackett here. So obviously in the first half of the game, it's 9-10, whatever. It's backup offense. We know that it's not going to be working too well. Or we got the backup QB with our offense. We already struggle on offense as is, not going too well. Well, for whatever reason, the Broncos just decided, and this is on Nathaniel Hackett, because at the end of the day, he calls the plays, that they're just going to completely abandon the run. They ran the ball in the second half at a 2-to-1 ratio they passed the ball at a 2-to-1 ratio to what they passed. So they doubled the amount of passes they did, and they shrink the amount of runs they did, despite the success. And that is something that I just do not understand. I mean, we didn't run the ball fantastic, but we were running it effectively, I thought.
Yeah.
And then in the case of Rippon, he has that one turnover that results in points. It's very unfortunate because the defense gave up a field goal at that point, and they were already in field goal range. I mean, we did not do, I think, any favors for this kid by asking him to throw the ball 46 times. 46 times.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I actually didn't mind some of the play calls where they try to get Judy down the field or Sutton. I actually like it when Rippon slings it because he actually has a decent looking ball. It's just some of the throws are off target.
Yeah, his accuracy is not there, and his arm strength is not there. So, but he's a backup quarterback. Like, he's just supposed to be serviceable.
Right.
And in the case of the offensive line, I had been giving them a lot of, hey, I don't think they're playing well. I don't think they're playing well. Well, the Jets have a decent D line, and I thought they held up pretty well, honestly. I was impressed with our own line. I thought they gave us a chance to win. And I didn't understand why, if they were passing so good, or if we were able to have time to pass, why didn't we try and keep going with the run?
Yeah. And I thought both teams kind of got away from the run.
Yes,
and
they definitely did.
It's definitely more troublesome, I think, for the Jets because that's what they're good at. And so, like, the Broncos can run the ball
well, they have to run the ball because, unfortunately,
it's more so by committee too. Now that Javonte Williams is gone for the year.
Sure.
And they had a bunch of guys chip in. I thought Boone, Murray, and Gordon, they didn't really do much individually, but I think as a unit they were pretty effective.
I mean, Boone averaged almost 6 yards a carry.
And then Hamler busted one open for 14.
And he only touched the ball 4 times. So that's a question for Nathaniel Hackett. Why did he not touch the ball more? I mean, I know he ended up getting injured, but it's just.
Well, you bring up
he hurt his ankle, so that's essentially why. But earlier in the game, he still was not getting the carries.
Well, so you bring up injuries for the New York Jets. They had 2 injuries in the game, and actually, I just got news that one of those injured players, Elijah Vera Tucker, he is out for the season.
Yeah, and Breece Hall
with the triceps injury. And you bring up Breece Hall, he's more than likely going to be out with what is feared to be an ACL. I think that's what I saw.
Yeah,
but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No. That's exactly what is expected. So for the Broncos going forward, obviously the season's kind of totally just about washed. I mean, they would have to go, I don't know, probably 8-2 the rest of the way. They would if they would even give themselves a chance, which I don't really know if that's possible. But I think the focus more so is on coaching right now. And Nathaniel Hackett has to be on trial because he's the one who calls the plays. He's the one who calls the shots. He's supposed to be this guy who knows how to work with the offense, and he doesn't. It doesn't matter if it's Rippon. It doesn't matter if it's Russ. That's the thing that I'm noticing. It does not matter who's out there. The play calling is consistently bad. The play calling is consistently inconsistent because we don't know if we want to run the ball, pass the ball. I feel like we start running the ball good and then we start taking shots down the field because we see something and then we get so focused on that we get away from the run. I mean, this is not unfortunately, we have big names as receivers. Like, that's great that we have Sutton. That's great that we have Judy. Like, they're guys who are playmakers. But at the end of the day, clearly, we do not know how to get them the ball. And we clearly, when we have our backup quarterback, don't know how to run our offense. But I don't even know if we know how to do that with our starter. So for me, there is only one thing that can happen for the Broncos going forward. Nathaniel Hackett has to relieve himself of the play call duties. We saw Sirianni do it, and it worked out better for you guys. So I would say for Hackett, and this is something that was brought up yesterday because he was asked about it. And you know what he said? He doesn't think that he's the problem.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, for a guy who asked his backup quarterback to throw 46 times, um, and he did not run the ball, I really question that decision.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're 100% right, because I read something in the ESPN app today, and it basically said everything you just said, that it doesn't really matter if Wilson or Rippon is the QB. It comes down to Hackett's play calling, and I think it kind of proved it yesterday. It doesn't really matter who's back there. And the other thing that I
We have
thought
broke 20 points once this season,
against Vegas, I believe.
once.
And the thing that also I've noticed is I feel like the Broncos get behind the chains early, especially in first down. I feel like there's a lot of plays where they'll just try to run and they'll get one or two, or they'll get stopped at the line of scrimmage or incomplete pass, whatever. I think there's been a lot of second and longs. I think that's a killer, because sometimes they'll get the yards back and then they'll have manageable 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. But
But you know what? On second down, one thing that I noticed yesterday, they were doing a lot. They're passing on first down. And listen, I don't care that you're trying to be unpredictable. That's fine. But the problem is it's your backup quarterback. Your options are limited. On first down, that's when you can be the most unpredictable.
well, I was going to bring up how there was one first down yesterday. I think you guys are around midfield, and you went play action. You threw a bomb, and it wasn't caught, but it was to the end zone. I love that. I think you need to do more.
Listen,
I think a lot of teams should do more of that.
listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I understand if it's Russell Wilson and you want to do that, but with Brett Rippon, I don't think that that's the right decision.
Yeah, and hopefully for Broncos fans like yourself that you get Wilson back, I'm
I'm
expecting
expecting him to
he's gonna
play.
play.
Yeah.
so that you guys go to London to play Jacksonville before your bye. I actually think, listen, the 2-5 record obviously is not good, but I think you can win some games, Connor. I think Jacksonville's very beatable. Even Tennessee, I know they're 4-2. I still think they're somewhat beatable. And then you got Vegas and Carolina. I think those are teams that the Broncos can beat. Question is, will they do it? I mean, that's the remains to be seen, but I think they can do it. They definitely have to find a way to get some wins, because obviously Kansas City and LA are at the top of that division. But I think you're right there with some other teams that are kind of in the middle. I think you can be that. You just gotta execute. I think there's some room there for improvement. But I was gonna move on to the other AFC West team in action in the 4 o'clock window. Actually, all 4 of them were in the 4 o'clock window yesterday, but the Las Vegas Raiders, they were at home yesterday and they defeated the Houston Texans 38-20. Kind of an offensive explosion from the Raiders. I'm not saying the Texans have an all-world defense, but definitely encouraging for the Raiders to get a win there. Yeah, what did you see from this game? Anything that
Well, I saw the
Was
Raiders.
eye-popping?
I saw the Raiders offense explode, and I mean, this is the offense we've been waiting for the Raiders, and they finally kind of delivered. They feel like a team to me. Watch out for in the second half of the season. I think they're going to be dangerous.
Yeah,
Them and
obviously they had a slow
them and the
start, but
Bengals are the 2 teams that I really would watch out.
the two teams that played each other in the wild card round last year. And it's funny too, they put up 38 points and Devontae Adams didn't even get into the end zone.
Mhm.
Jacobs had a day. He had
Jacobs is amazing.
143 in the ground and 3 touchdowns. He's been pretty good this year.
Well, you know what? And that's got to be a credit to their O-line. They don't have a great O-line, but their run blocking has been actually kind of decent. So they kind of keep rocking with it. Give that O-line more confidence. And right now for them, they're winning with their offense. They got to keep doing that.
And Carr was pretty effective in the past game. But yeah, you move on to the other teams in the AFC West. The Seahawks took on the Chargers at SoFi Stadium, and a little bit of an upset there.
Upset,
Seattle
yeah.
comes out with a win, 37-23. And so, do you think the story here is Seattle better than people thought, or is, I don't know, do you think it was a dud from LA? I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. They absolutely dominated the trenches. They ran for 168 with Kenneth Walker. And then as a team, they ran for 214. I mean, they averaged 6 yards a carry as a team. Walker himself averaged 7.3. I'm sorry. And listen, we've seen teams do it before. Use the run to open up with the pass. And that's exactly what their offense is doing. I mean, obviously, Geno had some turnovers. He had an interception. He had a fumble lost. I mean, it wasn't the best game on his end. But you know what? They had a turnover on their own end. They were able to force a turnover against Herbert. So they got one of those back. Listen, the defense isn't great, but they do a good job of getting turnovers. Seattle's defense does. Obviously, giving up 23 to this offense is a win any day of the week. But for Seattle, it's just, listen, keep doing what you're doing, keep running the ball, just keep having Gino doing what he's doing with the passes he needs to make. And for next week for them, that's a huge game. 4-3 Seahawks, 6-1 Giants. Listen, somebody's got to win that game. Let's see who's legit.
Yeah, it could be a big game down the road if they're both still in playoff positioning, which they very well could be, the Seahawks.
The Seahawks also, they play the Cardinals the week after, but then after that, they go to Germany to play the Bucks.
Yeah, and you know what? Looking at that Bucks game in Germany, it's more winnable each week.
Yeah, it is. You're totally right.
And you know what? They already beat the Cardinals once up in Seattle. It'll be a little different maybe down in Arizona, but they know they can beat them. I mean, things looking up for the Seattle Seahawks.
No, I completely agree. And then they play teams like the Panthers. They play teams like they also play teams like the Raiders. I mean, they play the Jets as well. I mean, these are the games that they gotta win if they're gonna find a way to make something of their season. But honestly, they're kind of a little bit of a fun team to watch because they put up a lot of points. So
Yeah, Geno Smith can sling it.
yeah.
And another team that they're going to have to compete with are the San Francisco 49ers. And they took a tough loss at home yesterday to the Kansas City Chiefs, 44-23. I think the storyline coming in was for San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey made his team debut for the Niners after coming over that Thursday night trade from Carolina. But the story here is the Chiefs, they can just score whenever they want. It's actually unbelievable how good their offense has been. And coming into the year, you're thinking, oh, no Tyreek Hill, how's it going to look? It feels like they haven't really missed a beat. And I know San Francisco put up a respectable 23. It just still wasn't enough. And yeah, the Chiefs are still looking like that dominant force in the AFC. And I don't know, things are going well for them too.
Yep. And I saw something today. The Chiefs apparently have a 70% chance of winning the division right now, as the way it stands.
Wow.
Yeah. So
They have an interesting slew of games coming up really quickly. I know we're running out of time here, but they've got Tennessee and Jacksonville at home the next 2 weeks. And then they go to LA to play the Chargers. Then they play the other LA team at home, the Rams. And then they play in Cincinnati and then in Denver. Interesting slew of games.
yeah, no, I mean, they got to get past the first two first, but that stretch after it could be tough.
Yeah, I think things are looking up for them. And then
But they kind of close out the season a little easy. I mean, they play the Texans, the Seahawks, who we'll see what they are at the time. Then they play the Broncos again, and we know how that's going to go.
oh
Yeah, old Mahomes is going to do his thing, ruining the new year. It's on New Year's Day. All right, so then we also have this Sunday night football game. Steelers, Dolphins. I mean, I wasn't the most excited for this one, but it found a way to get close at the end.
there
I
was
mean,
some drama late in
the
the game.
Dolphins offense absolutely just went into nap mode in the second half. I mean, they fell asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, Kenny Pickett unfortunately made some rookie mistakes out there, which it's gonna happen. He's a rookie, but
I mean, I thought on one of them, I thought the guy completely fell, so it wasn't
100%.
wasn't 100% his
I
fault.
think the other ones were kind of on him.
No, they definitely were on him.
It was good for Miami. Good game for them getting Tua back and getting the win there. They definitely needed a win because they were skidding. They hadn't won actually since Tua started his last game before the injury. But yeah, good win for them. And then very briefly, Monday night football tonight at Gillette Stadium up in Foxborough, Massachusetts, between the Chicago Bears and the New England Patriots. I think coming into this game, not a very eye-popping game for I think outsiders beyond these two teams, but if I had to pick the game, I'll ask you for your pick too. I think I'm taking New England. I actually think Chicago could hang around. It's just, I don't know. Their defense is not very good. And Justin Fields, listen, he can be sloppy with the turnovers. I actually think he's pretty exciting to watch because he can do stuff with his legs, but they just don't have much around him. I think New England wins pretty comfortably, but
Yeah, I do too.
it could be interesting.
I do too. I think they're going to find a way to really confuse Fields. I mean, he's having a tough season so far, but listen, I think against this New England defense, they know how to really manipulate a young quarterbacks, especially with their coverages and disguising things to look a certain way and then doing them the completely opposite way. There's no smarter coach out there than Bill Belichick, and we're going to see that on display tonight. I definitely like the Patriots.
Yeah, and Mac Jones is expected to be back for the Patriots, so we'll see how he looks. Definitely got big shoes to fill after Zappy's little run there. So let's see how that goes in Foxborough tonight. But thank you very much for listening today on After the Whistle. We will be back on Friday discussing some baseball and football and some other stuff. So have a great rest of your week and we will see you then.